at allpointstv.com. And we are glad always, we're glad to see you out there and hope you'll stay tuned for the next hour. We're going to be doing the program called What's Going On Again here. We come on at 2 o'clock on Mondays, and we have a number of programs here at the studio. I want you to stay tuned to all of the programs we're doing here. And we are trying to bring about a different quality of program. And we are competing with some very big heavyweights, not in necessarily this area in this county, but we're going to be going at some point. We got to get out of the local, and hopefully we can ride on the shoulders of networks like Rumble. And we're already doing things with Facebook. I do a post on Facebook every day. One person was asking me over the weekend, George, where have you been? We haven't seen you in a long time. And I was telling him I couldn't understand that because I publish on Facebook every day. And I told him that the only thing that can account for the fact he's lost contact with what I'm writing is that I must be shadow banned without knowing it because I haven't gone anywhere. And if he's not been getting the feeds that I've been sending out, then that's something different than what should be going on because I do publish on Facebook. That's the first. In fact, that's the first. My routine is get up in the morning, make coffee, and I've already done the homework and studying what I'm going to write about. So I kind of get up with the idea, sleep on it overnight, and then get up and with next morning make some coffee, and then go into the computer room and knock out the article. And I was surprised when he said he was not getting the articles. But I know that if that's true, then that explains a lot of what's going on behind the scenes because I know I'm putting a article up every day at the same time every day. But they do a lot of things with these networks, and we're going to eventually have to go and get our own. The best thing to do is God bless the child that got his own, and we got to begin to think about how we're going to control our own business from ground floor up to the point of it being directed to the viewers, and we're getting more viewers every we get more eyes on what we're doing each week. So we're very happy with the amount of growth that we have going on. We just got to continue that. We've been here long. We've been here for a number of years, and if anybody thought we were going to fold up tent and go home and it would be all done by now, they were sadly mistaken. If they had their fingers crossed over, we go away. That has not happened, and we're going to be here for a while. Okay, I want. There's been some very bombastic things going on here, and want to bring your attention to a couple of things. Uh, I learned something this weekend about. I didn't know a lot about Maine. I know Maine's Senator Mamie Clark. I knew she claims to be a Republican. She's one of those rhinos in the Republican Party, and I could understand her a lot better given the confrontation that occurred over Title IX this past week. And this is over. Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, has stated publicly and boldly, really, that she is not going to comply. I can see you not complying if someone is dictating something that's outside of their authority, the orbit of their authority. But when you have somebody saying that they're going to enforce the law, and you have a governor who, on a state level, the governor is the law enforcer. On the next level, you got two levels of government that's recognized in the Constitution: the state level and the federal level. And they have a governor saying that she's not going to follow the law. That's a real problem. And this past weekend, let's see what day of the week was that last week. Donald Trump called a governor's meeting because they're trying to get people on board with a number of issues. One of which, of course, would be the issue of the deportation of those persons that are here illegally, and they're causing problems in the country. And I think they've gotten away from this idea. They're going to just go out and sing and just round up everybody that's not here uh, with any kind of legitimacy based upon being invited into the country and having the country's documentation as the reason why they're here. We have, I think they've kind of fallen back on that. You're talking about 20 some odd million people that they admit to that came in during the Biden administration. And I think they've fallen back away from that position, although Tom Homan is doing a good job. I don't think they are as ambitious in terms of the. I'm gonna say are the probably not as committed to the the problems that will be created by trying to round up and then deport and transport persons back to their individual countries. I mean, how do you do that in terms? You got to individuate first of all, segregate the population of this country from another country, and then you got to provide the transportation out of the country to those countries. And each one, and we got 100 and some odd indigenes who are here because they've let in. It's not just South America, it's not just like Mexico next door or Canada. These people are from all over the world, and you're talking about deep rounding up people having to go through the documentation, find who first of all who they are, because if they're undocumented, you don't know. We don't even know who's in the country. So in doing that, he called a governor's meeting, and I noticed when they were um, getting ready to have the formalize the meeting, President Trump asked, "Is the governor of Maine here?" And he had to know that the governor was there, but he wanted to call her out, and and he told her right to her face. He told her that is it my understanding you're not going to comply that with the directive that men will not be allowed in women's sports. And I couldn't believe this governor. This is not I mean the DEI that's over with. I'm sorry. This has gone on long enough and far enough. I noticed that it was it's being addressed in the military, and this anything that you have that's not based upon merit, this country's got to get back to merit. And I was stunned that a governor could stand in front of the constituents and be as defiant about something as what is the word I want to use here? I think it's just you. Do I want to say something as I can't even think of the word here that would describe this because it's so abnormal. We become we become a society that's so abnormal in our everyday dealings that we can. I mean, you can't define what a woman is. Katunji Brown Jackson couldn't define what a. She was asked by the Tennessee governor, the Tennessee senator, was asked this question about just wanted to know what her take on it was. Uh, Asked her to can you define what a woman is? and she's trying to get confirmed to be on the Supreme Court. And her answer was that she could not define what a woman is. I think that's disqualifying. You can't define. What is this? What are we dealing with in this country? You can't define what a woman is.
It just dawned on me that it seems like they're taking stuff away from like the average person be able to determine this gender or sex of an individual when they're meeting them. There's like, the beard and mustache probably indicates male, right? So they want to, and then now they want to give into the hands of these elites, these people who have wrote papers on this, and let's face it, their whole financial future is dependent on passing this by everybody and get everybody to grasp this new way of conceptualizing human sexuality and gender roles. I mean, it's ridiculous. Constantly, I mean, this is definitely a first world problem. I mean, and the thing
Yeah.
is, in this country's stage of development, we're going to have to go back to looking at when we're first almost falling apart so much, and we're going to become a third or fourth world nation because of the expenditures, and the collapse is going to be imminent. It's going to, when you have something that's really powerful like we have, when it collapses, it goes beyond, it's going beyond the basement, And now we're dealing with these ridiculous, absurd distractions. That's all it is,
Yeah,
distractions.
John, I can't believe it. I have traveled. I think I've been in about 20 third world countries, and I have never had one conversation about this gender thing that we talk about here. I don't even know how I would enter into a conversation with anyone about. I mean, it doesn't come up. How would I enter into a discussion about what a woman is in any of the countries I've been in? And I don't think that there's any way that discussion can even be entered into, because it'll be seen as such madness to claim confusion about something of which there has not been any confusion over it for 2,000 to 4,000 years. Nobody ever talked about, even asked the question, what is a woman? It was a given that the females were a group and males were a group, and that was pretty much the deciding issue. It was never anything about any additional genders. I never even heard anybody talking about more than two genders. It was never even, you couldn't even raise that conversation. How do you get into a conversation that more than two genders and don't have any evidence, and you're having a conversation about that? I mean, that's a lot. We're becoming dumber for having engaged in those kinds of conversations. Well, last week it was quite interesting, because I thought what would happen here was that I thought we would have finally some agreement on something in the country. It seemed like if you say yin, the other one say yang, and we don't want to come together uh, to create another paradigm of what we mean by the United States, because we're not United States right now, because I haven't been that for a long time. I thought we would be able to agree on the fact that men should not be in women's sports. The Leah Thomas who could not compete, I think she was number 300 and some odd on the list of swimmers in the male category. I couldn't believe that she was now allowed to go into the women's swimming pool and go over there, and all of a sudden she's a superstar over there. And then women, I think that I read somewhere that there have been thousands of medals that women have lost out on, because at different levels of competition in many different sports, which be going to the women, because the idea of Title IX was whether women would be able to emulate the sporting opportunity that men had, and they certainly wouldn't have it in on the same playing field with men. I didn't think we should say uh, no to. We had some when I was principal. We had some. We had a female that wanted to play football, and we didn't have a football team for women, and she was. We kind of hid her out in ways where we didn't want to deny access to a sport she wanted to participate in, and didn't have a sport that we had as an alternative. So we put her in a position where she'd be out there in certain situations. So as a avoid, I didn't want to discriminate against anybody, but I didn't think it was a good idea to have uh, a woman out there in a sport making contact with these stronger men that by their physical design, their physicality, they will be differently uh, situated physically. And I just couldn't see how you could have a kickoff and those guys running down the field full speed and you running down toward them and pow, right, the two groups meet and here this man is hitting this lady. I could not in good faith. The dilemma was how do you accommodate the fact that men are not women and women are not men. There's nothing you can do to change that because that's a biological issue, and you cannot alter that by your wishes that it would be something different. So I had to try to find a way to accommodate the desire to compete in the absence of anything else that they would be able to do otherwise. But when you have men swimming teams and you have women's swimming teams, or in the lower levels below the Olympic level, you have teenagers, and they are now competing in the high school lower grade levels. The idea was to create an opportunity that the women did not have. You have a softball team for boys. You have to have a softball team for girls, and that has and although you might have some views on the assignments that women have and men have in society, some of those assignments are natural assignments. I remember when we first had girls now playing, let's say softball, and used to throw the ball. They wouldn't open up their body this way to throwing the ball where raising their arm up, and that they would throw the ball with a certain way that they would do it because you could tell they didn't want to, be it just it's just the fact that their biology was different, the physical design was different. But now, after a certain number of years they've been playing those sports, they haul back and throw that ball. I've seen those girls out there throwing that ball. I don't have a problem with that. I mean but I don't think they should be out there competing. Have men on those women teams. The idea of Title IX was to give them a shot. Since you have a shot, you playing the sport, give them a chance to participate in the sport. And they're not going to get out there, and you got males out there, and that's pretty much solidly going to be positions going to males because males are stronger, and they're going to dominate. And women would not have an opportunity out there competing against men because men have an advantage. We have to say that because that's true. Men do have a physical advantage. Men are stronger than women. I have to tell you that when I first began to see this craziness begin to creep in, the first time I came across it, they had this person that was going through the jungle with a machete, and they had the woman behind him, and they were saying, "Look at this male chauvinism. The man up there in the front, and she back there in the background. Yeah, but what if a lion jumps out of the bush? He's out there in his culture, understanding the danger. He goes up there first to make sure he's cleaning things out and taking the risk because he's more able to handle the risk than she is. And they're gonna say he look at the sexism in that culture there. That's why we begin to look at how's that sexism. you know, we had some people that went over there to what was that place they went over to, and they had a person complaining because the men had this position in society, and the women had this position in society, and they're gonna show them where's that. That's wrong. You gotta do it this way. Women were dressed behind veils, and that's oppressive. You ought to read Frantz Fanon on that one. When they took those veils off those women in some of those countries, by the way, those women lost their perspective because they were used to looking at the world from behind the veils. When they moved the veils, they were stumbling over things, weren't able to look at it from that perspective.
I seen pictures the other day of women in what we call Iran from 1960s, and they were just, I mean, they're indistinguishable from the Western world. So I mean, but parts of like Africa was now. Are there any Christian sects in Africa that require women to be like that? That covered. Like
I haven't seen it, not in the places I've been, and they don't do a whole lot of covering the way they do in the Middle East. The Muslims don't do the same kind of covering. I've seen women there are a lot of Senegal is 92% Muslim, and Gambia is not very far behind that. Probably about well, it's in the 90s. They're not too. There's not too much. I don't. You don't see them too much doing the covering there. But when I was in Egypt and I was getting ready to buy some clothing material and wanted to try it on, and then slipping the material over my head to try it on, I bumped up against this. I actually bumped this woman that was the service representative, and when I touched her accidentally, and I couldn't see her from pulling the clothes down. She jumped. Ah! It was like you had slapped her because that was so inappropriate for her to be touched. Period. So I've been in that culture, but in West Africa, where there is a strong Muslim presence, I mean, you can't hardly get to sleep in those places because they're doing Allahu Akbar all night long and all day long, and the bells ringing and things like that. But it's a different practice of Islam. I think there's still a hierarchy that they have there in terms of the strong place for the women and the strong place for the men. That part, I have not had in 20 countries I've been in. I have not had a conversation like the conversation that we're having here. And for the president to have given what is a reasonable and logical order, men out of women's sports. That's a violation of the law. That's what Title IX was designed to correct. Give women a chance to participate in the sports that men are participating in.
wasn't this also supposed to provide for the equal funding in both of the male
And
and
equal
female
funding
sports,
as
right?
well, because if that's exactly right. You have to talk about the equality of the opportunity. And so Title IX was designed to address that. I wonder how a person would feel having fought through that storm only to arrive on the other side of it, where they created another storm worse than one they were trying to address through the passage of Title IX. It took them forever to get that through. Now they're telling us that yeah, women sports can exist, but men can exist in the sport that was created so that women would have an alternative to men participating in sports. Well, what opportunity is there for them to participate in the sport if the men are over there competing against them and then denying them the opportunity to be victorious in the sport in which was created, so they would have an opportunity, scholarships and things of that sort. When Trump was campaigning on that, if he had not gotten anything else right, and he had a lot of things right I could go along with, but if he had not gotten anything else right, I would have voted for him on that alone. He was talking about in this gender inequality, where you create both men in sports and women in sports, but then you change it by having the men over there with the women competing, which then amounts to what you did before Title IX was put in place. You're still denying them an opportunity. And I thought that was unfair. I thought that was a way of circuitously going around what Title IX was designed to fix. They can always get around it. You pass a law to correct a problem, and then these people who are basically, thieves and dishonest and all the rest of it, they find a way to get around it. Just like when they ruled against the literacy test in '64 for voting, and then they found a way to get around it by simply, okay, we can't give we can't stop you from voting based upon the fact that your reading level is different from somebody else's reading level. But then they go and began to talk, then whisper in each other's ear where the voting is going to take place. And they have these what they call these white primaries, and it would defeat the. I've seen it so many different times where you pass a law and then they find a way to get around the law in the area where I live in the township. I went to one of the board members. I told them the board that you are in fact you're not violating the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law you are violating, and you're doing it deliberately. You don't intend to comply with this law. I forget exactly which one we were complaining about, but we had a whole community rallying behind this issue. And and I said a few words at the meeting, and I said that this is a violation of the spirit of the law. The law was designed to correct X, Y, and Z, and it could have corrected if you had followed the intent, but you are violating the spirit of it by being able to come to the same outcome, same purpose, but doing it a different way. In other words, you can put lipstick on a pig and claim that's Mother Teresa, but that does not make it so. It does not change what that is, and that conduct was they get around it by doing the same conduct a different way, so as to skirt the law and get away from it to do what they want to do. We keep saying we are a nation of laws, and we'll say that we believe that we are a nation of laws and not of men and women. And I don't know how we can say that when you're doing the things we're doing. And this is very lively. This is very lively and very heated. I don't know if it was even appropriate to have that confrontation like it played out, because Trump knew that woman would. He knew Janet Mills was in that audience. All the governors were there, because they're all there trying to get their piece of the pie, because all of them need federal aid to given these tough times now. You need federal aid in order to prop up your state's finances. None of the states are doing well, doing all that well, because the dollar has fallen in value, and inflation is rising, and all kinds of economic problems are occurring. Budgets not being met, and shortfalls in various states of different proportions based upon the states. I can't think of any state right now that could do without foreign aid. And some were offended when Donald Trump was talking very specifically and very clearly. A lot of emotion it was involved in it, but he used the word better when she said that she was not. He asked her, "Are you going to comply with uh, with the directive?" And she said that she would comply with the law. And Trump answered that his having stated that men would not be in women's sports was a law. And he wasn't saying that it's a law because he said it. He said it's a law because that's what Title IX requires. So now the enforcement of the law is on trial. And Trump used the word, told her this, and this is where a lot of the controversy came in. Donald Trump told her this: "You better comply with it, because if you don't, your state's not going to get a dime of federal money." And she said, "Well, and I'll see you in court." And his response to that was, "And I will meet you there." Well, I'm waiting to see what happens in that case there, but I know it should happen based upon the Constitution, because if you have every state able to make up its own mind what federal laws is going to follow, if you can give each state its right to what became known during the time of the friction between the states, the southern states and the northern states, that conflict that was going on there, for them to have this interposition and nullification, and they're now saying that the states have the right to nullify federal law. It's one thing to say that they have the right to do that based upon the 10th Amendment, 9th and 10th Amendment, if the federal law is out of whack with the Constitution. But when it is not a violation of the Constitution, but you just don't want to comply with it because of the customs and things of that sort, then that's a problem here that could, in fact, tear a nation apart if everybody's going to go off and decide what part of the law they're going to follow and what part they're not going to follow. If you can do that, you're not going to be a country very long. And that's what they were fighting over. They weren't fighting over slavery. They were fighting over whether or not the tariffs and the other laws that were passed at the federal level could be defied at the state level. And if that goes into court, I'm waiting to see what the court's going to say about this, because if the court sides with Janet Mills, see, it's almost time to do it now. But certainly, if that happens, it's time for them to defy the courts. The courts have to be true to the Constitution of the United States, and all of them are pledged to honor the same document. They all take an oath. You can't hold the office on any level without swearing to your fidelity to the Constitution of the United States. They don't pledge fidelity to the courts. Their fidelity is to the Constitution of the United States. And when Trump was told her that you better comply with it. Well, you know how Trump is. Trump is Trump. I think. I mean, that's part of his strength. Trump is bombastic, and that's part of the strength of this man. They know, people know this man is not a pushover, and I think sometimes I think he somehow, I don't want to say get off. That would be disrespectful, but he certainly doesn't run from the fire, the storm that his positions cause, because he doesn't seem like he gets bogged down by it. Many times he's laughing about it and so on, and I don't see any stress. I don't see him quivering anywhere. But he told her, "You better comply with it." Told her, "You better comply with it." And then that gave the media the kind of fodder they were looking for, because here comes Hitler. Here comes a dictator. This man doesn't believe in negotiation. He's talking, the language he's using is inappropriate. Well, I have to tell you this. The Constitution speaks in the same language. And it says, you better. Now, it doesn't say it in those terms. It says in these terms. Shall not. You shall not, and it goes into what you shall not, which shall not be done. And it's saying here, you better not do it. That's what it's saying. And if the country was functioning under the rule of law, that you better not do it is backed up by removal from office, potentially. That's a you better do it part there. Shall not, you better not. And if we had a government that was functioning by the rule of law, that shall not means better not. And if they cross it and do it anyway, then that should be actionable, and it should result not with a person drawing lines around the issue based on the party they belong to, but to protect the Constitution of the United States that they pledged to uphold. Then that better not and shall not language should bring about an action that's built into the document to back up the language of the Constitution, speaking in that kind of voice. Because the voice of the Constitution really is better not do it. That's the voice in which the Constitution speaks in. It's the voice of the Constitution is very abrasive. That shall not cannot be construed as should not. You should not do it. That's like you shouldn't do it. It's like you shall not do it. One of the first things when I became the principal of the high school, one of the first things that happened was that I sat down the star football player. The girls played on Thursday. Basketball, they played basketball. The girls did during the time the boys were playing football. So they played their games on Thursday. Basketball. The boys played on Friday. Played football on Friday. And my star football player came in the gym and had his hat on. And I had a policy that you don't wear hats inside the building. And I didn't care if it was a football player. I didn't care if it was a cheerleader. You don't wear it's inappropriate to wear your hat inside of a school building. Wearing your hat, and to me that was an in your face kind of thing. And I had made a rule: you don't wear your hat inside the building. And he came walking in there, and everybody's sitting down, 1,000 people in the gym. He walking in there with his hat on. I couldn't believe it. I think my mouth dropped. I'm sitting right here. You pass by. You gotta be kidding. You pass by me with your hat on. I got in front of him. I got in front of him, and I said, "Very calm to take your hat off." And what they do, they pull the hat back to the back of act like they're complying. So they kind of not wearing it, and they kind of wearing it too. But I knew what was getting ready to happen. He's gonna sit down. Then when he sit down, he's gonna put the hat back on, put it all the way back on his head. I watched him the whole time down there. I already said, "Don't wear. You're not wearing your hat." But he didn't know the force was behind it, and the force I was willing to use to make him comply with what I said too. I was willing to comply with the force, and I didn't care who he was. He was basketball. He was a football player, not tight end. He played right end, and when he put his hat back on, I didn't go and ask him again. I sent the police down there. I sent the two officers. We had two officers in the gym, and their job was to, you know, their job really is to back my authority up. That's why they're there. My authority was backed up by the state of Michigan. That's the the authority that they don't want to use because it's not kosher to do that. My issue was I gave him an educational directive as an educator, but there is some force involved in it. My authority is backed up by the state of Michigan, and Michigan backs it up by calling in as much force as needed to get the compliance with the law, with the rules. Person don't like to use that because you calling you. So the next day we played the football game. He wasn't out there because I called the coaches in Friday morning and said, "Look, he ain't playing. You're not going to represent the school and walking there with your hat on in front of all these people, and then they see you having one rule, and we have another rule for everybody else, and we lose control of everybody because they understand that you're not serious. We have one rule, and everybody's gonna follow that rule." I had a step grandson going to that school, and one day they brought him in to the office, but they didn't tell me who he was, and didn't tell me that, uh, they knew who he was, but they didn't tell me who he was. They're gonna walk in there and tell me what the infraction was. Say he was doing this in class, doing that class, doing this in class. I said he's going home. Can't do that. So then these security people was testing me to find out, do I have one policy? I only had one policy. There were no big eyes and little U's. It was one I, one U, one T, and all of them crossed the same way. So they said, "Well, we didn't tell you that the person we brought in here was your grandson." My response to them, without any hesitation, I said, I know he's going home. I sent that joker home so fast. I knew he was going home because you gonna do that. I got to discipline someone that's related to me, and he gonna come in there and what, defy a teacher in the classroom. I'm backing up all the teachers. I back all of them up. Now, if I got a problem, I'm gonna talk to the teacher later on the side. But in front of the students, I'm backing the teacher up because any confrontation that goes on in the classroom between a student and a teacher by the mere fact of the difference in their credentials. I learned that from my mom. Have an argument with an adult, pow, I'm getting it. Because my mom understood that you got to have rules. And no child is going to set rules in a community that my mom was living in. Not her children. If I had a problem with an adult, I was wrong because I should not have engaged the adult in a way in which I became the adult and she became the adult child. My mom would not tolerate that, and I didn't tolerate it. And so I didn't. When I made that when I made that statement of take him out of here I took him out on the police. Took that student out on the police escort because I had already talked to him about it. I had no more. I had no more to say. He turned an educational directive into a military question. It became a military issue, just like that. And the next day, they the football team came in, third hour, I think it was. They came in there like 15 deep. I mean, I've been principal maybe about 3 weeks, and they thought this was business as usual. It wasn't business as usual. The business was that handbook. And so they came in there, Mr. Moss, we heard that he's not playing tonight and blah, blah, blah. He's our tight end. We need him, blah, 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 blah. I said, look, let me tell you something. He's not playing. But don't come in like no mob. I tell you what you do now. You go out and get a committee of 3 persons and you all work it out and who the person going to be to come in and talk to me about it after school's over. But don't come in like a mob. And they walked out pretty happy. They thought, well, we just came the wrong way. And we come in the right way after school's over and we get a committee, we go in there and we sit down and talking and the rule is no longer in place and he plays and all the rest of it. I was waiting. I knew what they were thinking as they left. They left out pretty satisfied, thinking they had won the day. He wasn't playing. That was the way it's going to be. And after school was over, I had 3 chairs in my office set around when they came in. They have to stand up. They gonna sit down. I had 3 chairs in there, and I said, "Gentlemen, have a seat." I said, "Here's the bottom line. He ain't playing, but I never create a problem that I don't have the answer to. And here's how I'm gonna fix the problem that I created." I should have said that he created, but I said I created. I created the problem, I guess, by sitting him down, but he created the problem by putting his hand on his head. I wasn't. I was thinking about my part, my role. I said, no, I've never created a problem that I don't have the answer to fix. I'm gonna fix this problem here. Tonight at the football game, you got a man down. Your star player is not playing. That's the bottom line. He's not playing. But here's what I want 11 of you guys out there that are playing to do. I want you to elevate your game and play and give me 110% in those positions, in those 11 positions, and that makes up for the man that is in fact down. Because if you give 110% and each of you guys do it, then we have more than we would have had if he had been playing. And then lo and behold, they won the game because they were playing a team I would call them the Raggedy Roaches. I mean, they were not. We were better. We were just had a better team. It just so happened that in that game our team was better, and we didn't need him to win. But even if we had needed him to win and we lost the game, we just lose the game. What we're not going to do is lose control of the school by having one policy and then another policy. I'm not into that. Rules and Rules are made to be broken. Where that? You give me a break. Where did that come from? Rules are made to be broken. No, records are made to be broken. Ain't mad at nobody. Uh, Owen's running a hundred in 9.96, and 9.6 today is slow. Guy's not running that 100 meter in 9.1. I ain't mad at that. Babe Ruth had. I was celebrating Babe Ruth in 1906. I was celebrating Babe Ruth's record being broken in 1961 by Roger Maris. I came from school every day. The first thing I want to do is get the paper and read. Did he hit one? Did Roger Maris hit one last night? I want to know because that's made to be broken. Rules are made to be broken. Why would you make the rule? Give me a break. Why would you make a rule if the rule can be broken? The rules are not to be broken. The rules are to be followed. Can we get? Give me a break. I mean, we gotten so far off in this country. It's amazing now. How can we do the things we're doing in this country today? We're destroying the country. Set the rules up. Make sure everybody understands you shall not violate the rules. And if they violate the rules, smash them. I don't mean hit them on the head. I mean enforce the rules. The framers gave us the rules, but they didn't just leave it out there and say, well, I hope I hope they'll follow the rules. No, the framers put out there the rules, and then in 3 different parts of the Constitution, they set up what would happen if the rules are not followed. That was you better not violate. And there were 15 instances where a person were on the courts. Listen to this very carefully here. Those of you who think that the courts need to be obeyed. Those judges, we've had 15 judges impeached in this country. 15 federal judges that were impeached. 6 of them were removed through the impeachment process. These are judges now being removed. These are judges because they have to answer to the Constitution of the United States. That's what they swore to defend. And people don't understand how, I don't know how to get this wrong, how egregious it is for them to ask the President of the United States to obey the courts. People would just couldn't believe I'm writing in my Facebook post saying that the president not only should defy what one merchant is doing in that court. What he's doing in that court, you got a president in the court of the United States as if he's a common criminal in a court being tried about something that was done when he was president of the United States, and they are now bringing him in a court of law. That is not allowed. And I think I was so mad that violation could go on like that. I think I was in tears because the Constitution is very clear what should happen. And these courts talking about the president has immunity, and now they have to figure out where the immunity is. Is it over here in this domain, or is it over here in this domain, or is it over here? Maybe it could be over there. Where we got to now figure out in what instances can we apply the so-called immunity rule, and immunity is not mentioned one time in the document. We're gonna make a law and then make people. We're gonna make a law and then make people immune to having to follow it. Can you believe people would even suggest that? I never even thought about that. In I don't think it ever came up in a class that I was in. Well, we talked about the president being immune. Did I ever hear that? Immune, the president is immune from following the law. I don't think if that had been, I know how I would have responded to it, because I know that there is no immunity in the Constitution of the United States. What would be the purpose of having immunity if you are setting out a standard in which the law is to be followed so that everybody can understand what the rules are? But and then you say the rules apply, but not in this case right here. It doesn't apply. So the Constitution becomes wishy washy, and that's what you notice when you read the document. And I read the document many times, to the point where when I came out of grad school, I'll be honest with you, I could quote that stuff, verse, song, and dance. I'm not as sharp as I was then, but that, knowing where it was located, it was like automatic. It's still a little bit automatic now, but I sometimes, is that Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, or is it Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2? Sometimes it'll be some scrambling like that as I get more and more senile. But I never heard anyone say in those classes, nobody ever said that a president has the only immunity that you would have would be diplomatic immunity. That's where nations will recognize the representatives of another nation, and therefore there are certain things that they have because they are those persons that represent that government, and because governments are co-equal around the world, no matter how small a nation is, he's the president of that nation. And so there will be a co-equal kind of balancing act where you recognize their their ambassadors and their representatives, and they have immunity. And when you go to those countries, the immunity is recognized as you being representative of the country that you came from. And it's like quid pro quo, and that is as it should be. You can't have states and countries prosecuting another country's members. So you have to, in that sense, you have to recognize there's a certain amount of immunity. But they have the country's constitution being followed, and laws being followed, and then you begin to exempt from the law those persons who are there in the country in violation of that which is written in clear language in black and white, and you're going to exempt them from following it. And then what does it say to the ones who are the commoners, like those of us who are out here that are the common man and the common woman? What are you saying to them? That we have to follow the law, but those who are the rulers that are ruling over us don't have to follow it? What kind of example would that set? And what does that do to the law? It nullifies it. I was in one country, I won't call the name of the country out, but I was in the country, and this guy was, I guess that was his girlfriend. She was selling these masks, 25, I think it was $25. And he wanted everybody that came in that place to have their phone. You get a different thing they put in the phone where you can communicate locally by changing the card they put in those phones. And I walked in there, and the guy told me that I had to wear a mask, and his girlfriend that's sitting in that chair selling the mask. I saw that scam from way back, and I said, "You're not wearing a mask." He tells me he didn't have to wear a mask, so he owned the shop. And then when I refused to comply with it, because if you're not wearing a mask, it could not be the danger you're telling me about, because you're not any less in danger by me wearing not wearing a mask than by you not wearing a mask in my presence. I'm just as endangered by it if it's a danger by you not wearing a mask. If you would be endangered by me not wearing a mask, that's like quid pro quo for me, and I'm not going to tolerate you give me a rule that you're not following yourself. And he got up to he gonna get me out of the shop, and I told that guy this: if you put your hands on me, one was going through that window. I mean, I'm respectful until you put your hands on me. That's another thing I have to say about Trump that I like about Trump. See, we don't understand how Trump negotiates. We think that Trump is negotiates because people are afraid of him. Trump knows how to negotiate. When he's getting ready to pull out of Afghanistan is a good example of that. Go look at that. Go back and look at that. Donald Trump was negotiating with the Taliban in Afghanistan. The leader of that. He had in his inside pocket a picture of the guy's house. Now, a lot of persons saw that part and saw that he had a picture of the guy's house. They didn't see the other part, which is more important. Trump, first of all, started out by telling him, I want to pull out of Afghanistan under conditions. We are going to pull out. So they wanted America out of their country. Trump was willing to do that. It did not require any additional fighting because the objective of the fighting had been met. But then Donald Trump said this: if you harm one American during the time period in which the pullout will occur, I'm going to kill you. You know what the interpreters did? Did you read about this? Did you understand what's going on there? You keep saying they were scared of Trump and blah blah blah. They're not scared of Trump. Trump understood what the objective was. The objective was you've been over in this country for 20 years. They want you out of their country. Not unreasonable. What's unreasonable is for them to then continue to fight as if that has not been agreed to give them what they're fighting for. Why would you continue to fight if that is already agreed upon that that's going to happen? But Trump told them that if during the time period in which the pullout is going on, if you kill one American, he tells the translator, if he tell him that if he kills one American, I'm going to kill him. And the translator, this reminded me of Tariq Aziz when they were negotiating to pull out, not necessarily to pull out, but when Saddam Hussein was negotiating with Bush about being in Kuwait. And people didn't see this, Janet Reno and the rest of them. You didn't see this because you're not trained to look in the depth that you learn as you get more training to read into things. And what Bush did was he handed Tariq Aziz a note, and the note was deliberately written in non-diplomatic language. And Aziz, the representative in that negotiating, they thought they getting ready to negotiate, wouldn't be any fighting going on, but Bush had him where he wanted him. He wanted to loop him into that conflict and then smash that army that they had helped build, because that army was really built by the United States. But you don't have the army, you don't need the army anymore because Iraq is not fighting Iran, and you wanted to have Iraq neutralize Iran, but you want those weapons out of Saddam Hussein's arms now because he could be the bully in the Middle East where that oil is. And he wrote a note to give to Saddam Hussein, and Tariq Aziz read the note and said, "I can't take this as my president." And then they have never discussed what was in that note. Actually, what was in that note? It was non-diplomatic language, where if he did that, then you take the president's statue away from him, and so on and so forth. I could tell you that they were never going to negotiate a settlement of Kim Jong Un getting rid of nuclear weapons in North Korea. Because what you're doing is telling him that he ought to, in fact, remove the strictures through which he manifests his power. His power is because they have nuclear weapons. If he gets rid of that, that takes him down in the stature of his own people, and he's vulnerable. He knew that's not going to happen. You have to understand what the vulnerabilities are, and that's why this war in Ukraine can be uh, negotiated now, because Donald Trump understands the other person's view of it. That's one thing I would give Jeffrey Sachs credit for. Probably the smartest man in terms of he and John Mearsheimer are probably the two smartest men in the country about the politics in the eastern part of Europe. Jeffrey Sachs at Columbia University and John Mearsheimer from Chicago University.
So I didn't know you liked Jeffrey Sachs too, though. I mean, I really like him. He's cut straight to the chase.
I like him.
Yeah.
He's an honest broker, and I like anyone. If you want to get on my good side, not that you have to get on my good side, but anybody want to get on my good side, you got to be honest. I don't like people that do double speak. Just give me the clear understanding of your position. It may not be the position I want you to have, but I can certainly respect that you're not speaking with a forked tongue. And I have a lot of respect for Jeffrey Sachs. He takes a lot of positions. He was doing an interview with Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan asked him, "Do you have anything to say positive about your country?" He does. He's not against his country. He's not a traitor. This man is not a traitor. But sometimes when people are speaking truth, it sounds like they're against the country. He's not against the country. The man loves the country.
Well, if you ever heard though before, if you post two different statements, if one group of you are saying you're a liberal, and from another group you post on, you say you're to ultra right wing, you're probably a libertarian because you're critical. Okay, and that's what it is. I mean, if you're a libertarian, you run into that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been called a liberal because I'm absolutist about the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And
that you get labeled if you're a person that cut right down the middle, and you don't care who it touches. If you're that kind of an honest person, you're a pariah in a lot of different circles. People talk this yin and yang, and they don't mean that stuff. They want you to bend it a little bit, bend the law a little here, and bend the law a little there. That's what is happening with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is simply going in there. He's getting ready to do the Defense Department next. I can tell you this right now. There's a lot of cutting that can go on there, because they've been feeding on the fatted calf, and there's going to be a lot of things going on there. But this thing, I want to come back to what I started out with here. This thing about Title IX, that's been the law almost forever, since they finally began to realize that it's discriminatory. You got something for the men.
The Title IX come in about the 70s sometime?
Yeah, about the 70, somewhere 71, 72, somewhere around there. And for them to have something for the men to do, and the women are not even an afterthought. They don't even think about that. It's not even a thought about, what about the women then? What do they do? You got men playing over here in these sports, and there are no sports for the women. What about that? When I was in high school, baseball, men. Softball, during recess, the teams were, you occupy their time when they're on recess and give them something to do. They would have leagues on each recess, and we had 3 recesses, so you had teams playing. Never a girls' team. The girls sitting on the sideline watching and things like that. It was never even a thought. But then as we become more mature, then they began to realize that that's not fair to women. What about women having something to do? So they created Title IX was what the men are doing. The women ought to be able to participate also. And now we get this confrontation because now that they did that, they want to now change the formula and have men in sports. And Donald Trump has said no to it. He told Janet Mills of Maine, the crazy state. I know it's a crazy state now because I saw the governor and I see Mamie Clark over there, and both of them have. Didn't know the governor before this, but the governor's lost her mind too, and Mamie Clark is definitely out of her mind. So we're gonna. I tell you how it should play out by the Constitution, Article 6. That's how it should play out. Article 6 should rule the rule. If it does not do that, then we got a constitutional crisis here, because there's no doubt about the fact that the states cannot, in fact, defy the rule of law because they disagree with it, or the governor disagrees with it. And Trump has said he's going to see her in court, and we'll see how that plays out. But the way it should play out, Article 6 should rule. Get men out of women's restrooms, get men out of women's locker rooms, and get men out of women's sports. And do that yesterday. Okay, got to get out of here. Got to get out of here until next week. Once you follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.